The bank manager ripped up Keanu Reeves' withdrawal slip and threw it in his face. "Sir, this isn't a homeless shelter." "Security." The pieces of paper floated down like confetti, landing on Keanu's worn boots. But what the manager didn't know was that Keanu had just become the anonymous owner of the entire bank chain. He had no idea that the man standing in front of him in a torn hoodie and faded jeans controlled every decision, every policy, every single job in that building. And what happened in the next 30 minutes changed that branch forever. Some called it justice. Others called it a miracle. But everyone who was there that day will tell you, they've never seen humility hit back so hard. They've never witnessed karma work so swiftly, so perfectly, so completely. This isn't just a story about a celebrity getting revenge. This is about what happens when arrogance meets grace, when cruelty meets compassion, when someone who has every reason to strike back chooses a different path entirely. Before we dive in, drop a comment and tell me, where are you watching from? I want to know where all my viewers are tuning in from today. And if you've ever been judged by your appearance, looked down on because of how you dressed, or dismissed because someone thought you didn't matter, this story is for you. If you've ever been underestimated, this one's dedicated to you. Stay with me, because what you're about to witness will restore your faith in quiet power. Let's begin. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon in downtown Los Angeles. The kind of day where the sky hung heavy and gray, and the streets glistened with puddles that reflected the towering buildings above. Inside Horizon Trust Bank, the atmosphere was completely different. The air conditioning hummed softly, a controlled 68 degrees year-round. Marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers that sparkled like diamonds. Everything about the place screamed wealth, exclusivity, and power. The walls were lined with dark mahogany panels. Leather chairs sat in waiting areas that most people never got to use. And behind the counters, tellers worked in silent precision, their uniforms crisp, their smiles practiced. This wasn't just a bank, it was a statement, a fortress for the elite. Branch manager Vincent Marlowe ran the floor like it was his personal kingdom. Designer suit, tailored, sharp, expensive. Slicked, back hair that looked like it had been styled by a professional every single morning. A Rolex that caught every beam of light, flashing with every gesture he made. He loved two things above all else: power and being seen with it. He wanted everyone to know he was in charge. He wanted clients to notice him, staff to fear him, and competitors to envy him. Mems Parker, your posture is terrible. Stand straight when greeting clients. His voice cut through the quiet hum of the bank like a whip. A young teller flinched, immediately adjusting her stance. "Tom, that tie is hideous. This is a premium institution, not a thrift store." Another employee looked down, embarrassed, his face flushing red. Vincent walked between the desks like a general inspecting troops, pointing out flaws, making corrections, asserting dominance. He treated staff like servants, like props in his performance of success, and customers. He treated them like trophies, but only if they looked the part. "Mr. Deldo!" "Welcome back, sir. Please, right this way." His tone completely shifted when he spotted a man in a three-piece suit entering through the doors. Suddenly, Vincent was all charm, all warmth, coffee, sparkling water. "Anything you need, we're here for you." He practically bowed as he escorted the wealthy client to a private desk. But if you didn't look the part, if you didn't wear the right clothes, carry the right bag, flash the right watch, you were invisible. Or worse, you became a target. A chance for Vincent to flex his authority in front of everyone watching. That's when the door opened. The glass doors slid apart with a soft hiss. A man stepped inside, worn black hoodie, frayed at the edges, faded jeans with a small tear near the knee, scuffed boots that had seen years of use, a baseball cap pulled low over his face, shadowing his eyes. No entourage, no assistance, no fanfare. He walked quietly to the back of the line, hands tucked into his pockets, his movements calm and unhurried. It was Keanu Reeves. But no one recognized him. To them, he was just another drifter. Another person who had wandered into the wrong neighborhood, the wrong building, the wrong world. The other customers glanced at him briefly, then looked away with subtle discomfort. Some shifted in their seats. Others whispered to each other behind raised hands. Vincent noticed him immediately. His eyes locked onto Keanu like a hawk spotting prey, and he smiled. Not a kind smile, a predator's smile. "Oh, this should be fun." He leaned toward his assistant, a young man named Marcus, and whispered, but just loud enough for the people nearby to hear, "Watch this. I'll have him out in 2 minutes." Marcus looked uncomfortable but said nothing. He'd learned long ago not to question Vincent. A few customers nearby smirked. Others shifted awkwardly, sensing what was coming but unwilling to intervene, and Keanu, he just waited, patient. Still, unbothered. His eyes scanned the room slowly, taking everything in, the marble, the chandeliers, the people, the energy. He didn't check his phone, didn't tap his foot, didn't show any sign of impatience or frustration. He simply stood there, hands in his pockets, waiting his turn like everyone else. Because that's who he was. A man who never demanded special treatment. A man who believed in fairness, in equality, in treating every moment and every person with respect. But Vincent saw none of that. All he saw was an opportunity to show everyone in that bank who was in control. When Keanu finally reached the counter, the teller, a young woman named Sarah, greeted him kindly. She had warm eyes and a genuine smile, the kind that wasn't rehearsed or forced. "Good afternoon, sir. How can I help you today?" Her voice was soft, respectful, without a trace of judgment. "I'd like to withdraw some cash, please." Keanu's tone was polite, calm, straightforward. "Of course. May I have your account number or ID?" Sarah reached for her keyboard, ready to assist. Before Keanu could answer, a shadow fell across the counter. Vincent appeared beside her like a storm cloud blocking the sun. "Sarah, I'll handle this." His voice was sharp, dismissive. Sarah's smile faded slightly, but she nodded and stepped aside. She'd learned not to argue with Vincent, not in front of customers. Vincent turned to Keanu with a condescending smile plastered across his face, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Sir, I think you're confused. This is Horizon Trust, a private wealth institution. We require clients to meet certain standards." He looked Keanu up and down slowly, deliberately, making sure everyone watching understood the judgment being passed. "I have an account here." Keanu's voice remained even, unbothered. "Really? And what's the balance, $20? Vincent chuckled at his own joke. A few customers nearby laughed along, some nervously, others with genuine amusement. One man in a suit smirked and shook his head. A woman with designer sunglasses whispered something to her companion. Keanu stayed calm. His face showed no anger, no embarrassment, no reaction at all. "I just need to make a withdrawal. Let me guess. You're here to cash a paycheck, or maybe ask for a loan you'll never pay back?" Vincent's voice grew louder now, performing for the audience that had gathered. He wanted everyone to see this, to witness his authority. Sarah shifted uncomfortably behind the counter. Her hands fidgeted with a pen. "Mr. Marlowe, maybe we should just..." "Quiet, Sarah. I'm teaching a lesson here." He didn't even look at her when he spoke. His eyes were locked on Keanu, studying him like an insect under a microscope. Vincent leaned closer, invading Keanu's personal space. His voice dropped to a mocking whisper, but still loud enough for others to hear. "Look around you. See these people." He gestured broadly to the customers standing nearby, sitting in leather chairs, waiting at private desks. "They belong here. They've earned their place. They contribute to society." He paused for effect. You look like you just came from under a bridge." A heavy silence fell over the branch. Even the people who had been laughing before now looked away. It had gone too far. Everyone could feel it. But Vincent didn't stop. Keanu's jaw tightened slightly, the first crack in his calm exterior. But when he spoke, his voice was still steady. "Appearance doesn't define worth." Vincent threw his head back and laughed. Loud, theatrical, cruel, the sound echoed off the marble walls.
"A philosopher! How inspiring!"
He clapped his hands slowly, mockingly. "Tell me, does your philosophy pay bills? Does it put food on the table? Does it earn you respect?" Keanu said nothing. He just looked at Vincent with something deeper than anger, sadness, even. "Didn't think so." Vincent snatched the withdrawal slip from Keanu's hand. He barely glanced at it. Then, with exaggerated slowness, he tore it in half. The sound of ripping paper cut through the silence. And then he did something no one expected. He threw the pieces directly in Keanu's face. The torn paper fluttered down, landing on Keanu's hoodie, his shoulder the counter. Gasps rippled through the room. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. One elderly woman sitting nearby stood up, horrified. Even the customers who had been entertained before now looked shocked. This wasn't just rude. It was humiliating. Public degradation. Vincent smiled, satisfied. He'd made his point. "Security. Escort this man out, now." Two security guards approached from opposite sides of the lobby. They moved hesitantly, slowly. Their faces showed discomfort. They didn't want to do this. But orders were orders. One of them, an older man named Pete, spoke quietly. "Sir, I'm sorry. You need to leave." Keanu looked at Pete, not with anger, with understanding. "It's okay. I know you're just doing your job." He brushed the torn paper off his shoulder calmly, then turned back to Vincent. Their eyes met, and for just a moment, Vincent felt something unfamiliar. A flicker of doubt. A whisper in the back of his mind asking, "What if I'm wrong?" But his ego smothered it immediately. Keanu spoke, his voice quiet but carrying across the entire room. "You don't know what you just did." Vincent smirked. "Oh, I know exactly what I did. I protected my bank from people like you." He crossed his arms, proud, defiant. Keanu nodded slowly. He looked around the room one last time, at Sarah, whose eyes were filled with shame, not for him, but for what she'd just witnessed. At the customers who couldn't meet his gaze. At Vincent, who stood there like a king on a throne made of arrogance. Then Keanu turned and walked toward the exit. His footsteps were soft on the marble floor, steady, unhurried. He reached for the door handle, but just as his fingers touched the cold metal, a phone rang. Vincent's phone. The ringtone was sharp, intrusive. He pulled it from his pocket, annoyed at the interruption of his victory moment. The caller ID read Carpio Urgenti. His smirk faltered. He answered, his voice regaining its confident edge. "Marlowe here." But the voice on the other end shattered everything. "Vincent, do not let anyone leave that branch. We just received word that Mr. Lawrence, the new anonymous majority shareholder, is conducting a surprise inspection today." The voice on the phone was sharp, panicked, breathless. It belonged to Regional Director Monica Tran, and she sounded terrified. Vincent's smirk vanished instantly. His face went pale. The color drained from his cheeks like water from a broken dam. What? What does he look like? His voice cracked, trembling now. The confident tone he'd used moments ago completely evaporated. "We don't have a photo. He values his privacy. Refuses all press, all publicity." Monica's words came fast. Urgent. But he was supposed to arrive 30 minutes ago. "If he's there and you didn't recognize him," she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Vincent's hand began to shake. The phone trembled against his ear. His eyes darted frantically across the room, scanning every face, every person. The elderly couple sitting near the window. No, too old. The businessman in the three-piece suit, maybe. Possibly, the woman with the designer handbag. No. Then his gaze landed on the door. On the man in the torn hoodie, halfway out. His stomach dropped like a stone into ice, cold water. No. It couldn't be. But the timing, the arrival, the quiet confidence, the way he didn't flinch when humiliated. Vincent's throat tightened. His heart hammered against his ribs.
"Wait."
His voice cracked as he sprinted across the marble floor, his polished dress shoes slipping slightly. He nearly fell, arms flailing for balance. Every eye in the branch turned toward him. Keanu paused, his hand still on the door handle. He didn't turn around immediately. He just stopped, waiting.
"Wait."
"Sir, please." Vincent's voice was desperate now, high-pitched, frantic. Nothing like the commanding tone he'd used minutes before. Keanu turned slowly. His expression was calm, unreadable. Vincent skidded to a stop in front of him, breathing hard. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the air conditioning. His face was flushed red. "Sir. Sir, please, I apologize. There's been a terrible misunderstanding." He forced a smile, but it looked more like a grimace. His hands were shaking visibly now. Keanu looked at him, silent, patient, letting the moment hang in the air. "I didn't realize. I should have. Please come back inside." Vincent's voice dropped to a pleading whisper. Keanu's voice was quiet, steady. "Why?" The single word hit like a hammer. Vincent stammered. Because you're a valued client and a minute ago I was trash." Keanu's tone wasn't angry. It was factual, simple, true. The other customers were fully tuned in now. Phones came out of pockets and purses. Screens glowed. Record buttons were pressed. This was going to be everywhere. Vincent could feel the walls closing in. His career, his reputation, his entire life. Everything was collapsing in real time. His voice dropped to a desperate whisper, barely audible. "Please, don't do this. I have a family. I made a mistake." His eyes glistened. Was he actually going to cry? Keanu looked at him. Not with satisfaction. Not with triumph. With something sadder, pity. "You didn't make a mistake. You revealed who you are." The words landed like stones. Heavy, final. Vincent opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. Just then, the glass doors swung open with force. 3 people in sharp business attire entered quickly, purposefully. 2 lawyers carrying leather briefcases, and Monica Tran, regional director. She was a woman in her 50s, impeccably dressed, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her heels clicked rapidly against the marble as she scanned the room. Then her eyes found Keanu, and they went wide. Mr. Lawrence. Her voice rang out across the entire branch. The room froze. Every conversation stopped mid-sentence. Every movement ceased. Vincent's knees buckled slightly. He grabbed the edge of a nearby desk to steady himself. His worst nightmare was confirmed. The man he'd just humiliated. The man whose withdrawal slip he'd torn up and thrown in his face. The man he'd ordered security to remove like garbage. Was the owner of everything. Monica approached Keanu swiftly, her expression a mixture of relief and deep concern. She gave a respectful nod. Not a bow, but close. "We've been trying to reach you, sir. We're so sorry for any inconvenience." Her voice was professional but warm, genuine. She glanced briefly at Vincent, and her expression hardened for just a fraction of a second. Then she looked back at Keanu. "Has everything been acceptable here?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Keanu looked at Vincent, who was now visibly shaking. His face had gone from red to ghostly white. Sweat dripped down his temple. "Your manager just threw me out." Keanu's voice was calm, matter of fact, no embellishment needed. Monica's jaw tightened. Her eyes turned to Vincent like a guillotine blade locking into position. "You did what?" Her voice was ice. Vincent's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air.
I didn't know. He didn't say who he was.
He was dressed like... He stopped himself.
Too late? Like what, Vincent?
Monica's voice was deadly quiet now. Vincent had no answer. He looked down at the floor, trembling. Monica looked back at Keanu, her expression pained. Her "Mr. Lawrence, I am deeply, profoundly sorry. This is completely unacceptable. We will handle this immediately." She gestured to the lawyers. "Draft termination papers."
No, wait. Please.
Vincent's voice broke into a sob, but Monica raised a hand silencing him. "We have protocols. We have values. You violated both." But then Keanu raised his hand. Everyone froze. Wet. That single word carried weight, authority. Not the kind that demanded attention. The kind that earned it. Monica stopped immediately, waiting. Vincent looked up, hope flickering in his tear-filled eyes. Keanu walked slowly back toward the counter. Not toward Vincent. Toward Sarah, the young teller who had been kind. Who had greeted him with warmth and respect. "What's your name?" His voice was gentle. "Sarah, sir." She was trembling too, but not from fear. From emotion. From witnessing something she'd never forget. "How long have you worked here?" 3 years. "And how does he treat you?" Keanu gestured toward Vincent without looking at him. Sarah hesitated. Her eyes flicked to Vincent, who was staring at her with desperate, pleading eyes. Then she looked back at Keanu, and quietly, honestly, she answered, "Not well." 2 words. But they carried the weight of 1,000 moments. 1,000 small cruelties. 1,000 times she'd been dismissed, belittled, ignored. Keanu nodded slowly. He understood. He turned to Monica. "I want her promoted." Effective immediately. Monica didn't hesitate. "Of course, sir." "To what position?" "Assistant branch manager." Sarah's hands flew to her mouth. Her eyes filled with tears. She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. "Thank you," she finally whispered, her voice breaking. Keanu gave her a small, kind smile. Then he turned to Vincent. The room held its breath. Phones were still recording. Every eye was locked on this moment. Vincent stood there, broken, waiting for the final blow, waiting to be destroyed. And Keanu spoke. "You humiliated me because you thought I had no power. But the real test of character isn't how you treat the powerful. It's how you treat those who can't fight back." Keanu's voice was quiet, but it filled the entire space. Every word landed with precision, with truth. Vincent was sobbing now. His shoulders shook. Tears streamed down his face, ruining his perfectly styled image. The Rolex on his wrist suddenly looked meaningless. The designer suit felt like a costume. "Please. I'm sorry. I'll do anything." His voice was barely a whisper, choked with desperation. Keanu stared at him for a long moment. The silence stretched. Everyone waited. Cameras recorded. Then Keanu said something no one expected. "I'm not going to fire you." Vincent's head snapped up. Hope flooded his face like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. His eyes went wide.
"Oh, really? Thank you."
"Thank you so much, But you're going to work under Sarah now." The hope died immediately. Vincent's mouth hung open. "You'll learn what it's like to be on the other side, to follow someone else's orders, to be questioned, to feel small." Keanu's tone wasn't cruel, it was educational. A lesson, not a punishment. Monica nodded sharply. Consider it done, Mr. Lawrence. She turned to Vincent, her expression leaving no room for negotiation. You'll report to Sarah starting tomorrow morning. Any insubordination, any sign of the behavior you displayed today, and you're finished. Understood. Vincent opened his mouth to argue. The old Vincent, the arrogant one, wanted to fight back, to say this was humiliating, unfair. But then he looked at Keanu, at the man he'd thrown paper in the face of, at the man who had every right to destroy him completely. And he realized he had no ground to stand on. None. He closed his mouth and nodded, defeated. Yes. Understood. His voice was hollow, empty. Keanu walked toward the exit again. His footsteps echoed softly on the marble. Everyone watched him go. Sarah wiped tears from her eyes. The other employees stood in stunned silence. Customers whispered to each other, phones still recording. But before Keanu reached the door, he stopped, turned back, and said something that changed everything one more time. One more thing. Monica straightened immediately. Yes, sir. There's a reason I came here today. His voice was calm, but there was something heavier beneath it now. Something that made everyone pay even closer attention. Monica looked confused. Sir. Keanu reached into his jacket, the worn, torn hoodie that Vincent had mocked, and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It looked old, creased, like it had been carried for a while. He handed it to Monica. She unfolded it carefully. And as her eyes scanned the page, her face went completely white. Her hands began to tremble. This is... She couldn't finish the sentence. A list, Keanu said quietly. His voice was steady, but there was pain in it now. Real pain. Of every employee in this branch who has filed complaints about harassment, discrimination, or unfair treatment in the last 2 years. The room went deadly silent. You could hear a pin drop. Keanu looked around the room, at the tellers, at the clerks, at the security guards, at people who had been invisible for so long. 12 people. 12 voices ignored. Monica's hands trembled as she scanned the list. Her eyes moved down the page, and with each name, her expression grew darker, more horrified. I didn't know. Her voice was barely a whisper. That's the problem. Keanu's tone wasn't accusatory. It was sad, disappointed. The people at the top never know. Because the people at the bottom are too afraid to speak. He turned toward the room, toward the employees who were watching with wide eyes and tight throats. I'm not here to be your hero. I'm here because I know what it's like to be invisible. One of the older tellers, a woman named Deanne, stepped forward slowly. Her hands were shaking. She'd worked at this branch for 15 years. 15 years of being overlooked, dismissed, treated like furniture. You really read our complaints. Her voice cracked. Keanu looked directly at her. Every single one. Diane's lip quivered. Her eyes filled with tears. No one ever listened before. Her voice broke completely. Other employees nodded. Some wiped their eyes. One young man in the back, Tom, the one Vincent had mocked for his tie, covered his face with his hands. His shoulders shook. Keanu's voice softened even more. I'm listening now. He turned back to Monica. She was still staring at the list, her professional composure cracking. I want a full third-party review of this branch. I want exit interviews with everyone who quit in the last year. And I want a new policy implemented across every branch in this chain. Anything, sir. What do you need? Any manager accused of harassment gets suspended immediately. Pending investigation. No exceptions, no protection, no looking the other way. Monica nodded firmly, her jaw set. Understood, sir. We'll begin immediately. Today. Good. Keanu nodded. Then he did something even more unexpected. Something that left everyone speechless. He walked over to Vincent, who was still standing there, broken and trembling, and crouched down to his level. Vincent couldn't look him in the eye. He stared at the floor, ashamed, humiliated. You're not a bad person. Vincent's head lifted slightly, confused. Keanu's voice was gentle now, almost kind, but you've been cruel. And cruelty becomes a habit if no one stops it. Vincent's tears started again, but quieter this time. I'm giving you one chance. Not because you deserve it, but because everyone deserves the opportunity to be better. He stood slowly, looked down at Vincent one last time. Don't waste it. And with that, Keanu Reeves turned, walked toward the glass doors, and stepped out into the rain. No grand speech, no spotlight, no applause, just quiet, devastating grace. The doors closed softly behind him, and for a long moment no one in that bank moved. No one spoke, they just stood there, processing what they just witnessed. A masterclass in humility, in power used correctly, in what it means to be truly strong. The next day, the story went viral. Videos from customers' phones spread across social media like wildfire. Within hours, it was everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Reddit. The headlines screamed across every platform. Keanu Reeves humiliated at bank, then OW as the manager. The most humble billionaire just taught a masterclass in respect. Bank manager destroys his own career in 60 seconds. This is why the world loves Keanu Reeves. Millions of views. Tens of millions. The video clips were shared, reposted, commented on, dissected frame by frame. People paused at the moment Vincent tore up the withdrawal slip. They replayed the part where Keanu said, "You revealed who you are." They cried when Sarah was promoted. They debated whether Vincent deserved a second chance. News outlets picked it up. Morning shows discussed it. Talk show hosts made jokes about it. But through it all, through every viral tweet, every news segment, every podcast discussion, Keanu never commented, never acknowledged it, never released a statement. He didn't do interviews. Didn't appear on camera to tell his side of the story. He just let the story speak for itself. Because that's who he's always been. Someone who doesn't need validation, doesn't crave attention, doesn't use his platform for personal gain. He simply lives his values and lets his actions do the talking. Inside the Horizon Trust branch, things changed fast, almost overnight. Sarah stepped into her new role as assistant branch manager with a mixture of confidence and compassion that surprised even herself. She'd been quiet for so long, pushed down, made to feel small. But now, given the opportunity, she flourished. She listened to employees, created an open-door policy, started weekly check-ins where people could voice concerns without fear. She treated everyone, from the newest teller to the senior accountants, with dignity, with respect. Vincent showed up every day, head down, humbled. He worked twice as hard as he ever had before, trying to earn back even a fraction of the respect he'd lost. He said, "Please," and "Thank you." He asked questions instead of barking orders. He apologized to staff members he'd belittled over the years. Some forgave him. Others didn't. But he kept showing up anyway. Because Keanu had given him something precious, a second chance. And Vincent knew he'd never get a third. Diane and the other employees who had filed complaints finally felt heard. For the first time in years, some for the first time in their entire careers, they felt valued. Like their voices mattered, like they mattered. The third-party review Keanu requested came back with damning results. Systemic issues, toxic management practices, a culture that rewarded performance but ignored humanity. Monica didn't hide from it. She published the findings internally, held town halls at every branch, admitted the failures, and committed to change. And she delivered. Within 6 months, Horizon Trust became one of the most employee-friendly banks in the country. Exit interviews became standard. Harassment policies were strengthened and actually enforced. Managers were trained not just in finance, but in empathy, communication, leadership. Promotion criteria changed to include how people treated their teams, not just their numbers. Employees who had been planning to leave decided to stay. New talent wanted to work there. Customer satisfaction scores went up. Because when you treat your people well, they treat customers well. It's that simple. But the biggest change wasn't in the policies or the procedures. It was in the culture. People started treating each other like human beings. Not assets, not numbers, not obstacles, human beings, with families, with struggles, with dreams. They held doors open, said good morning and meant it, checked in on each other during tough times, celebrated small victories together, all because one man, wearing a torn hoodie and scuffed boots, reminded them what that looked like. He didn't give a speech, didn't create a training program, didn't write a manual. He just showed up as himself, treated people with respect, and expected the same in return. And somehow, that simple act created a ripple effect that touched hundreds of lives. Employees went home lighter, smiled more at their families, stopped dreading Monday mornings, and slowly, quietly, the culture of one bank branch transformed. Not because of fear, not because of rules, but because someone showed them a better way, and they chose to follow it. Sarah framed a printout of one of the viral videos and hung it in her office, not as a trophy, but as a reminder that kindness isn't weakness, that humility isn't the absence of power, it's the presence of strength, that how you treat people when no one important is watching reveals everything about who you really are. And every morning, when she walked into that office, she looked at that frame, and remembered the lesson Keanu Reeves taught an entire bank in less than an hour. A lesson that would stay with them forever. So what's the real lesson here? It's not about revenge. It's not even about justice. It's about this. The way you treat people when you think no one important is watching. That's who you really are. Vincent thought he was safe. Thought he could treat people however he wanted because they had no power, no status, no ability to fight back. But what he didn't realize is that everyone matters. Every single person who walks through your door, crosses your path, stands in your line. They all deserve respect. Not because of what they can do for you, but because they're human. Keanu didn't need to prove anything. He didn't need to announce himself or demand respect. He didn't walk in wearing a suit, flashing credentials, surrounding himself with assistants to show his importance. He just existed as he always has, humble, kind, aware. And that's why the world loves him. Not because he's famous. Not because he's wealthy. Not because he's starred in iconic movies that defined generations. But because fame didn't change him. Success didn't corrupt him. Money didn't make him forget where he came from. He remained himself, grounded, real, human. Vincent learned the hard way that power without empathy is just cruelty with a title. That a position doesn't make you important. How you use that position does. That respect can't be demanded. It can only be earned. And once you lose it, getting it back is nearly impossible. But he also learned something else. Something unexpected. That grace exists. That second chances are real. That even when you fall as far as he did, someone might still reach down and help you up. Not because you deserve it, but because they believe in the possibility of change, in redemption, in becoming better. Sarah learned that kindness, even in small moments, never goes unnoticed. That treating someone with dignity, when no one's watching, can change your entire life. She thought she was just being polite, just doing her job. But that simple act of respect opened a door she never imagined. Because good people notice good people. And when someone with power sees kindness in action, they remember. If you've ever been underestimated, overlooked, or judged unfairly because of how you look, where you're from, or what you're wearing, this one's for you. You don't need to own a bank to have worth. You don't need a mansion, a sports car, a designer wardrobe, or 1 million followers to have value. You don't need a spotlight to matter. You just need to remember, respect isn't earned by what you have. It's given by who you are. How you treat the waiter when you're on a date. How you speak to the cashier when you're in a hurry. How you respond to someone asking for help when you're busy. Those moments define you more than any achievement ever will. Because anyone can be kind when it benefits them. The real test is being kind when there's nothing in it for you. Type respect in the comments if you believe humility is real strength. And tell me, what part of this story hit you the hardest? Was it the moment Keanu was thrown out and humiliated in front of everyone? Was it when Sarah got promoted and finally felt seen after 3 years of being invisible? Or was it when Keanu gave Vincent a second chance instead of destroying him? Let me know below. Your feedback helps us create better stories for you. It helps us understand what resonates, what matters, what lessons you want to hear more of. More powerful, real-life inspired stories are coming soon. Stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, about humility defeating arrogance, about kindness winning over cruelty. Stay kind, stay humble, and remember, you never know who's watching. The person you ignore today might be the person who changes your life tomorrow. Treat everyone like they matter, because they do.